Yeah, the one. It's up to you. Whatever you choose, you use better. So we're talking about excretion. Excretion is getting rid of waste. That's what the term means. And we're going to be talking about our excretory system by which we get rid of waste. Um, so what are the waste products and how would we, and how do we remove them from our body? Well, there's a couple organs. Yep. Not real. I mean, vomiting is not really part of the excretion or excretory system. What? Yeah. Well, why do we throw up? Why do we vomit? Like, what's the for all of our things that happen in our body, there's a reason for it. Yeah, that's like the physical process. But why would our brain tell us to vomit? Well, but why? I'm really looking about the why. Yeah. So think about when a person would vomit. If they're sick, right? If they got like ate a bad food, yep. Then vomiting helps get rid of any viruses, particles, or any excess food that's in your stomach. How about if you smelled something really gross and you like gagged? Is that why would we have evolved to have that reflex? Yeah, it's like a warning, right? Because things that smell bad, yeah, are could have diseases or pathogens or make us sick, right? If you think about, something that smells really bad, lots of times those are things that are dangerous that we wouldn't consume. So it helps like warn us to stay away from something. Um, but it's not considered excretion. So um, organs for the removal of metabolic waste are a couple things. So our excretory organs include our lungs. So we talked about our lungs as taking in oxygen, but we know they also get rid of waste. What's the waste product our lungs get rid of? Carbon dioxide, correct. And so as we exhale, carbon dioxide from our blood goes into the air that's in our alveoli of our lungs, and then we expel it. Because carbon dioxide, we have to get rid of it. It builds up in our blood. Our blood can become too acidic. Our sweat glands that are in our skin are also a form of excretion. Um, Now, sweat helps us maintain our body temperature because it cools us off as it evaporates from our skin. Um, but also, it has waste products. Like sweat isn't just water. Could be of a fever, you might sweat. Um, oh yeah, really? I never heard of that. But in our sweat is waste. It's mostly water, but there's salts and urea. That's why, like, if you're outside all day long and you're sweaty, it's hot out, and sweat evaporates. What's left is like white, kind of um, salty deposit because the water part evaporates, the salt stays on your skin. Yeah, yeah. If it were just water, it wouldn't burn, right? Yeah, but there's the other stuff that makes irritates your eyes. Good point, Isaiah. Our liver is another organ because our blood goes through our liver, and this is where the nitrogen from the proteins that we eat gets broken down and produced into something called urea. Urea is what we excrete in our urine. And so the liver makes that. It takes nitrogen compounds from proteins and helps get rid of them. It also breaks down, other things, red blood cells or toxins in our liver. It breaks down alcohol. When a person drinks alcohol, it's eventually broken down by the liver. And that's why if you've ever heard of people having liver disease or liver failure, well, that could be a reason. So if a person drinks very much, drinks frequently, then it takes a toll on their liver. So if a person were drinking every day, or then eventually they could have liver disease and their liver could stop functioning. But there's other reasons why somebody's liver might fail as well. So these are organs in our body that help with excretion. But the kidneys are a really important one as well. Okay, or it looks like a kidney bean. Yeah, right? They're called kidney beans. They look just like a kidney. Um, why? They don't? I know. Sorry. That's a human kidney, right? They're kind of red. They're shaped like a bean. And the kidney's job is to basically, all of the blood in our body goes through our kidneys and they pull away things that are harmful, all sorts of different things. They take it out of our blood, turn it into urine, and so our blood is basically filtered or cleaned after it goes through these kidneys. Some of the things they filter out are glucose, salts, excess water, okay? And they remove those things, turn it into urine, and send it on to the bladder. Um, they have they're made of these little units that are, I think I'll show you on the next page, maybe not, called nephrons. That each little nephron filters out a small bit of the blood, and so there's millions of them in our kidneys. They're in like your back, so they're like towards the back of your body on each side of your spine and your lower back. That's where your kidneys filter. um, they're about 10 centimeters across, and after they produce, so your blood goes through, you can see in this diagram, okay, here's the artery. Yeah, it takes blood from your body, sends some to the right kidney, some to the left kidney, and they filter the blood, cleaning out these waste products. And then the blood that's been filtered goes back in through a vein and eventually goes back into circulation. But that blood will have been cleaned of these toxins and these substances. Um, yeah, it is. It's like much like a filter. That's a good analogy for it. And then what happens to the waste the kidneys are pulling from your blood? It gets mixed with water and turned into urine. That urine goes through these tubes, they're called ureters, that carry like a constant drip of urine into the urinary bladder. And the bladder kind of fills up as this drip, drip, drip of urine goes into it. And eventually it gets kind of filled up. And there's nerves that connect to our brain that tell us when we need to eliminate, when our bladder is getting full, we need to eliminate that urine. The opening from the bladder out to the outside of the body, that is called the urethra. So these long tubes here are called the ureters. The urethra is the tube that carries urine out of the body. And that's sort of the parts of the urinary system. Um, Urine, what is urine made out of? Well, it's made of mostly of water, 95% water. The other things, urea, that's that nitrogen containing compound. That's the next most abundant. Okay. And then there's all a bunch of other compounds here that are part of that, part of our urine, things that need to be eliminated from the body. And your kidneys adjust, right? They help you to maintain homeostasis. Yes. Yep. Um, so your kidneys they maintain homeostasis with your water balance. Because if a person, let's say, is dehydrated, haven't been drinking any water, it's hot out, they've been sweating and losing water, what do the kidneys do with their urine? The person's dehydrated. What do you think? also keep the water, sort of hold on to the water in our body and put less in the urine. Yes. And so when a person is dehydrated, their urine is darker in color. If a person's been drinking tons and tons of water, what do our kidneys do? Yeah, they send that, or they say, well, we got too much water in our body. Let's send more into the urine, and therefore the urine is sort of clearer in color. So your kidneys are always adjusting to make sure the water balance in our bodies is correct. What's that? That it dehydrates you? Yeah, caffeine is like a vasodilator, so yeah, it's not really water is the best thing for have. Yeah. So our kidneys are kind of they allow us to maintain homeostasis by balancing all of these different factors. And there are diseases that affect our excretory system and the kidneys. Kidney disease, if our kidneys aren't working properly, right? Obviously, they're not going to be able to do these functions, right? We can end up with too much urea in our blood, which kind of poisons us. Too much salt or water in the blood because the kidneys aren't really filtering it properly. And this can lead to some significant problems like, confusion, seizures, even a coma in extreme cases. Um, so why would our kidneys not work properly? Well, there's different things. Sometimes low blood pressure. If we took our blood pressure the other day. Your kidneys rely on pressure from your blood kind of forcing out some of the materials, some of the waste materials. If your blood pressure is too low, they don't filter it properly. If your blood pressure is too high, it can damage your kidneys. So having high or low blood pressure can cause damage to the kidneys. Drugs, mercury, um, infections, allergic reactions. There's lots of things that can damage the kidneys. Um, Another thing that can happen is um, minerals like these things that we look at here, things like chloride and magnesium, calcium, they can start to clump together and form what are called kidney stones. That's what this is. Yes. Yes, it's very painful. So when a person has kidney stone, a chunk of something like this, calcium or sodium or a mixture of things, forms somewhere in their urine, and it can block urine as it moves through the ureter. Okay, it's very painful. Okay, and so they sometimes try to break them up using like sound waves. That sometimes works, but sometimes doesn't. Basically, um, person has to just kind of sometimes deal with it until it goes up, makes its way all the way through the urinary system, and that's why it's very painful because these secretions are moving through these really small tubes, and so a kidney stone, really. Oh, really? Hmm. And it was very painful. When you had the kidney, so you don't remember. Um, so yeah, so that's another malfunction. Now we have two kidneys, and like we said, different things can damage our kidneys. Can a person live with one kidney? They can. Yeah, so one kidney can do all of the work of filtering your blood. So a person can live just fine. They had damage to a single kidney. That's okay. Yep. And if a person has no working kidneys, they basically they can't live without support with no working. So sometimes a person with two healthy kidneys donates one to somebody that has none. And often it might be a family member. Like if my daughters had kidney disease and their kidneys weren't working, I could donate one of my healthy kidneys to them, and then they could they could survive on that kidney. And I would have one, so I would be okay, and they would have one, so they would be okay. So you can donate kidneys. Sometimes a person, however, their kidneys aren't working, they can't get a transplant right away. So there's a machine that can be used to help sort of do part of the job of the kidney. That's called a dialysis machine. You ever heard of that? Kidney dialysis? Yeah, and so when a person's kidneys aren't working, they have to basically go to the doctor's office, probably daily. Sometimes they have at-home versions. Sort of, yeah. So what happens, you can see a picture here. What it does is they connect two tubes. One brings your blood to the dialysis machine. The dialysis machine basically is like an artificial kidney. It removes the waste products and excess water and so forth, and then sends the blood back into your body. But you have to go and do it basically every day because your kidneys aren't working on their own. So it's not a good long-term solution because, and it doesn't work as well as an actual kidney. But sometimes people need this before they can get a kidney transplant or for other reasons. Um, Here you see what it looks like. You can, blood coming out through a vein, goes pumped through a sort of a filter, okay, and then goes back into the body, and it regulates these different substances that are being filtered and water and so forth. Um, here's a picture of a transplanted kidney. So here we have a person, their kidneys were not functioning, so they transplant a new one. They usually leave the other ones in there, and they just sort of paste in this kidney from the donor and connect it to the circulatory system so that it works. Now, when a person gets an organ like a kidney transplanted, there are sometimes some concerns. You know what they are? You put another person's kidney into another person's body. Ever heard of organ rejection? So our body's immune system, your body knows your cells by these antigens on our cells. And so anything that's not part of you, what does your body do? Yeah, it fights it, right? It uses our immune system to fight it off. So if you have a new organ transplanted, yes, and it could destroy it. Obviously, that's not good. So a couple things. First, they often will try to get an organ from a relative if possible, because a relative's cells are more like your cells. And so your body's less likely to reject it. Yeah, sometimes. Yep. Yeah. And as also, when a person gets an organ transplanted, they need to be on special medications that lowers their immune system to help reduce the chance that kidney is going to be rejected. I think it's 3. Yes. Um, so a person that's getting its organ transplanted has to take medications that lowers their immune system so they don't reject the organ. But what's the problem with taking those types of medications? Exactly. Is that it lowers your immune system and you won't reject the organ, hopefully, but your immune system's also lower. So you might be more likely to get sick or get an infection or something like that. So, like when you hear about people that are immunocompromised, like that's a term you might hear when you talk about vaccines or people that are getting COVID or something. That could be because they're on these medications that lowers their immune system. People can get also infections in their urinary tract, okay, called urinary infection when bacteria get into the urethra or into the bladder and kidneys. It's more common in women than men because the length of their urethra is smaller in women than it is in men. Also, liver failure. Right? Liver helps filter and detoxify things in our blood. And so if our liver fails, because of an infection. Well, yes, and it can be, again, you can't live without your liver, right? If your liver is not functioning at all, then you can't survive. You need your liver, and so sometimes people get liver transplants. That's possible, and your liver can be damaged by, like we said, alcohol, other toxins, sometimes cancer, or sometimes infections as well. Like hepatitis can cause liver damage. All right. Any questions about our excretory system of moving waste? All right.